Well, there's a new debate over two Senate marathon speeches and whether the press treated them the same. First is the Democratic state senator, Wendy Davis, who delivered an epic filibuster against a Texas abortion law back in June. It later passed. And then you've got Ted Cruz on the Senate floor yesterday.
Members, I'm rising on the floor today to humbly give voice to thousands of Texans who have been ignored.
I intend to speak in opposition to Obamacare. I intend to speak in support of defunding Obamacare until I am no longer able to stand.
And on he went for 20-plus hours. The media hailed Senator Davis's speech as courageous. The president's team even tweeted about Davis after her June speech, saying this: something special is happening in Austin tonight. Hashtag stand with Wendy. And then Senator Harry Reid tweeted this: with all due respect to Senator Cruz, I'm not sure that we learned anything new. It's been interesting, but it's also been a big waste of time. Doug Schoen was an advisor to former President Bill Clinton. Monica Crowley's a radio talk show host. Both are Fox News contributors. Welcome to you both.
Thank you.
Let's dig right in. Doug, why?
Well, look, there is some media bias. I would be the first one to acknowledge that. But bottom line, I think Ted Cruz, Martha, got a lot of criticism because what he's doing is impractical. It hurts the Republican cause. And you may call him heroic, but ultimately he's President Obama's best ally. Half the Republican caucus is against him. It's not going to work. And ultimately it's going to raise the Democrats' numbers and not defund a government.
But I mean, that addresses the question of whether or not it was an effective effort politically.
I think that's why he got criticized as he did.
The treatment, you know, none of the major networks covered Ted Cruz's filibuster in the evening when it began. Right. Then in the morning, everybody's talking about this thing. I think we better get on it. And little by little, you saw more and more folks coming over to take a look at what was happening.
Yeah, and if the standard is the effectiveness of what they did, Wendy Davis's filibuster didn't have any effect either, because that bill to protect unborn babies after 20 weeks went through. So her filibuster was designed to make a political point as well. The media in this country is so corrupt and they're so leftist, Martha, and we saw this in the coverage. You'd be hard-pressed to find a more stark example of media bias here. In her case, they praised her looks, her flowing blonde hair, her pink sneakers, the way she was dressed. And of course, all of this, the root of all of this is the issue for which she stood on that Texas State Senate floor, which was abortion. So the leftist media exalts the cult of death, known as abortion in this country, and that's why they were cheering her on. But a charismatic conservative like Ted Cruz, who stood on the Senate floor for nearly 22 hours to defend individual liberty and economic freedom in this country, he gets torn apart by the press. It tells you exactly where they're coming from.
Yeah, I mean, and you just acknowledge that to some extent as well, Doug, in terms of the way that it gets treated. Part of it, I think, was fed into in Ted Cruz's situation because his own party was also slamming what he was doing. And we're going to talk to John Cornyn in a little bit about that.
Well, you know, if you look at people like Ron Johnson and Bob Corker, Lamar Alexander, they basically said this is impractical. We'd rather win elections than win debates that hurt us. But take the filibuster that Rand Paul had on the uses of U.S. power.
Right.
There were aspects of it that the left and the right liked.
That's true. That's a good point.
He got pretty darn good appeal across the board.
Because that issue happens to go across party lines as well.
Right.
And that's the point. There's no effort here, Martha, to reach across party lines, to do cross-border insurance, portability, tort reform. If the Republicans were saying, this is an unpopular law, let's fix it as part of doing the budget, I think they would have done a lot better.
Well, what's so interesting, though, here is when you talk about media coverage of this, you know, Ted Cruz stood up and he was representing what the majority of Americans want. Most Americans oppose Obamacare. Most Americans would like to see it repealed, either in its entirety or in part. He was representing what most Americans think and believe on this issue, and still the mainstream media would not cover him. What's particularly shameful is, as Doug points out, that there were Republicans, fellow Republicans, going after him. You expect the leftist media to attack. You expect Harry Reid and Barack Obama to attack. You don't expect this kind of internecine fighting
it'll be
within
very
the
interesting to see what happens in hindsight. You know, when you go 6 months down the road, a year down the road, I wonder if there will ever be a time when people say, you know what, that guy was right.
Well,
we will see. We
We'll
don't
see
know.
in the 2016 presidential election. I
You
suspect he'll be
expect-
running. I think Monica and I both agree he's going to be close to a front runner.
Yes.
Really?
Indeed.
Yeah, in the
Especially
Republican
after this
Party,
week.
absolutely.
Very interesting. All right, we'll see. Thanks, you
Great.
guys.
Thank
Good
you.
to see you,
Sure.
Monica, Doug.
You bet.
Have a good